I've learned the hard way that not all plants play nicely together in the garden. When I first started intercropping my tomatoes, I made the classic mistake of thinking that all vegetables could share space harmoniously. After multiple seasons of trial and error, I discovered that some plants actually harm tomato growth, leading to poor yields, pest problems, and even disease. If you want a thriving tomato crop, you must avoid planting them with certain plants. Today, I'm sharing what I've learned so you don't have to make the same mistakes I did. Tomatoes are heavy feeders, sensitive to pests, and prone to fungal infections. Certain plants either compete for the same nutrients, attract pests that target tomatoes, or create an environment that encourages disease. Some even release chemicals that stunt tomato growth. If your tomato plants have been struggling despite your best efforts, take a close look at what's growing around them. You might be unknowingly sabotaging your crop. I made the mistake of planting tomatoes near my cabbage patch once, thinking I was maximizing space. Big mistake. Brassicas, including cabbage, broccoli, and kale, are notorious for being nutrient hogs. They pull vital nutrients from the soil that tomatoes desperately need. As a result, my tomato plants looked weak and produced fewer fruits. Worse still, brassicas can stunt tomato growth due to their heavy root competition. If you're growing both tomatoes and brassicas, keep them in separate areas of your garden to ensure both crops get what they need. I used to think corn and tomatoes would make a great pair. After all, they both love the sun. But after seeing my tomato plants suffer, I realized my mistake. Corn attracts some of the worst tomato pests, particularly tomato hornworms, which can strip a plant bare in days. Corn also competes with tomatoes for nutrients and space, making both plants suffer. Now I grow my corn far away from my tomato beds and have noticed a dramatic improvement in plant health. Fennel is one of the worst companions for tomatoes. Unlike other herbs that benefit nearby plants, fennel releases compounds that inhibit tomato growth. I once planted fennel near my tomatoes without knowing this, and my plants barely grew. The few tomatoes that did develop were small and lacked their usual vibrant flavor. The lesson? Keep fennel in a dedicated herb bed, far from your tomato plants. Dill is a tricky one. When young, dill actually benefits tomatoes by repelling pests like aphids, but once it matures it turns on its neighbor, stunting tomato growth. I made the mistake of letting my dill grow too close to my tomatoes, and by mid-season my tomato plants had stopped producing new flowers. Now I either remove dill before it fully matures, or plant it far away to avoid issues. Potatoes and tomatoes belong to the same family, the nightshade family, which means they share many of the same pests and diseases. When I planted them together, I noticed an outbreak of early blight, a fungal disease that spread rapidly between both crops. The worst part? When disease hits one plant, it almost always spreads to the other. If you must grow potatoes and tomatoes, space them as far apart as possible to reduce the risk of disease transfer. Like potatoes, eggplants, and peppers are part of the nightshade family. I used to grow all my nightshades together, but I quickly learned this increased the chances of soil-borne diseases like verticillium wilt and fusarium wilt. These diseases linger in the soil for years, making it difficult to grow healthy crops in the same spot. To avoid this, I rotate my nightshades each season and avoid planting them too close to one another. This might not apply to every gardener, but if you have a black walnut tree nearby, be very careful. These trees release a toxic chemical called juglone, which is highly toxic to tomatoes. I've seen entire tomato crops wither and die simply because they were planted too close to walnut tree roots. If you suspect juglone toxicity, plant your tomatoes at least 50 feet away from any walnut tree to avoid contamination. While herbs like basil are fantastic for tomatoes, rosemary and mint are a different story. They have aggressive root systems that can outcompete tomatoes for space and nutrients. When I planted rosemary next to my tomatoes, I noticed the tomato plants weren't thriving. Turns out the rosemary roots were taking up most of the available moisture, leaving my tomatoes thirsty. Since then, I keep my rosemary and mint in separate containers or garden beds. Now that you know what not to plant with tomatoes, here's what works better. Tomatoes thrive with basil, marigolds, carrots, garlic, and onions. These plants either deter pests, improve flavor, or enhance soil health. By making smarter companion planting choices, I've had healthier, more productive tomato crops every year. Companion planting isn't just about maximizing space, it's about creating a balanced ecosystem where plants help each other thrive. By avoiding crops that stunt tomato growth, attract pests, or spread disease, you'll set yourself up for a successful harvest. If this guide helped you, don't forget to subscribe to Botanical Bliss for more expert gardening tips. And if you know someone struggling with tomato problems, share this guide with them. Because a well-planned garden is a happy garden.